It's running live now. Okay. Okay, hello guys. Today we have a very special episode. We're gonna delve into a little bit of we're gonna delve into a little bit of the history of how social media came into existence, how the current day social media that we all know and love it is here now, and how it affects us. So one of the main pieces of social media, one of the main sources is YouTube. We've all used it. Everybody's used it. All across the world. We all know how long it's been around. It's been around since 2005. And we'll talk about everything that's happened from 2005 up till today, and what made YouTube such a successful business and what made it such a successful corporation, even though during its early years it was actually struggling. It didn't have enough data capacity to keep its servers running, and it was running out of money. Even though videos back then were smaller, we didn't have the amount of storage that we have today. Most laptops today can hold a lot of GB, but back then it was mainly MB, and GB was rare, maybe used by higher corporations for larger data sharing. So yeah, today we're going to talk about everything. I think we'll start with the first ever YouTube video, which is, it's called Me at the Zoo. And I think a lot of people have seen it. It was released on April 23rd, 2005. And essentially it's just a guy. His name is Jawed Karim. And he's actually just at the zoo. That's all it is. It's just, I don't know how long it was. I think it was under a minute, or right around a minute. But it just talks, it's just him at a zoo, and the camera's just showing everything, and he's talking into the camera. That's how unscripted and how low quality, you could say, YouTube was at the time. It was just a basic concept, just, we put videos here and people can watch those videos. That's all it was. But now, obviously, we know it's a lot more. So how did we get here? What actually caused such a low performing and small business to spring into something so much larger that even other corporations like movies, I know A24, Warner Brothers, they all put their trailers for these movies on YouTube, and that's where the most views for those trailers and teasers come from. These big corporations are using YouTube as their main source of marketing. And how has it come to this, even though YouTube was about to close in its early years? Let's talk about media back then first. First, media in that age was very different. It wasn't like how it is today, where you can start up a YouTube channel and start posting, or open an Insta and start posting on there, or even TikTok. Back then, it was like a gated community. You had select corporations, not individuals, corporations and businesses who were able to promote their businesses through media. All of these corporations, like Hollywood, you see NBC, you see BBC, these all big news corporations, they all had control over what was being shown to the people. The people themselves were not able to just say, I want to put this online and everyone should see it. It was much more expensive back then. And then the concept of Google came around, where we see a bunch of different websites being created by people. People were sharing information with each other all throughout the world with the World Wide Web. This was in the 1990s, where obviously the internet boom happened, and we see all of these people connecting, but there's no real way to send videos, which is what Jawed Karim, one of the original founders of YouTube, was so confused by. I think he was working on a research project back then, and he needed help, or he needed a way to transfer files, and he could not find a way. So instead of just relying on what's already there, he created something new to fulfill his task. But aside from that, there was really no other corporation or no other individual that could just say, oh, I want to put this online and just post a video. Most of the stuff came from big corporations like, as I said, the big Hollywood, NBC, all of those guys. And once YouTube did come out, it was still not as popular, you may say, as before. You don't just go on YouTube and just on its first day, you just see people like posting everything and every day. And the main reason was that it was too overloaded. YouTube could not sustain its own servers. It was just a small group of people, like I think it was 3 or 4, and they were just sustaining these 320p videos. Like now, if you see a 320p video, you're like, what am I looking at? But back then, that was the highest quality available. YouTube didn't have 480p until later on in 2008. So these very lightweight videos, but of course, the data scales. Back then, 320p was a lot of data. It took up about how much 4K does today, in the ratio, of course. So you see these like people trying to post on YouTube. If there wasn't a lot of them, but there was still people that wanted to post on YouTube, but they didn't have the capacity. They couldn't keep running this, and they didn't have a revenue stream. The original founders for YouTube did not have a way to make money off of YouTube. They were just stuck managing this company on their own, paying for of course, YouTube costs a lot to run. We have to agree on that. Even today, YouTube is one of the hardest companies to run for Google. We don't know how much Google spends to keep YouTube running. We know their gross revenue, but we don't know their net revenue. We don't know how much they're making off of YouTube or losing off of YouTube. We don't know if they're profitable off of this. But the reason for that is data. Maintaining this much data is so difficult. Even for Google, you may think like Google is such a big company, they have so much money. But even for them, maintaining such a huge amount of videos, which is always growing, is so difficult to maintain and so expensive as well. Now, back then it was 320p and storage was limited. Now it's the same thing. It's 1080p, but those videos take more storage, or it's 4K and they take even more storage. So you have to acknowledge that the data and the quality of the videos is a ratio that'll keep expanding, and they're both going to expand continuously, and it's going to cost about the same relatively generally. But the thing is, today YouTube has so many more videos compared to back then that it's even more expensive to maintain, which is why it got sold. YouTube was actually sold to Google back in, I think it was 2006. Yeah, 2006. It got sold for 1.65 billion. YouTube got sold to Google, of course. And people consider this like a controversial event to happen, that like Google obtaining YouTube was like it was more corporate now. Like YouTube got ruined because of it. We see ads, we see now, like I think not recently, but like a year or 2 years ago, YouTube started doing 2 ads instead of 1, and that was like a really big debate, like why is Google doing this? And I think we all know that like Google's doing this because they need more money to run YouTube. YouTube is not cheap, again. So they needed more ad revenue, so they kept putting more ads. And we've seen that ads have increased on YouTube tremendously. And this growth on their ads has led to obviously more ad blockers as well. We'll get into that later, but we'll talk about what actually happened to YouTube on, I don't know the date, but it's in 2006. And it got sold for 1.65 billion, and from then Google was maintaining YouTube. And at the time, this was one of the most controversial buys. Like if you see this today, you're like, okay, wow, that's amazing, a good investment. But back then, YouTube again wasn't as big as it was today. So Google, a big company, buying something like this, a small corporation like YouTube, was very controversial, and a lot of people and a lot of analysts said like, this is actually insane. Why are they doing this? And I'm sure Google had their own reasons. They probably didn't predict that it was going to be this big either. So yeah, through this, Google obtained YouTube and essentially created the platform that we know today, because all of the things that we see today on YouTube are because of Google. And one of the main uses for Google, or one of the main turning points for Google, was political debates. Before, you would have press corporations come up and ask questions to the potentially future presidents, but then you were seeing people with webcams, people with cameras just coming up and asking these questions to future presidents, and you wondered how has this happened? Like, how did we go from elite journalists to a novice who doesn't even know that much about politics? It's all because of YouTube, because these videos would go on YouTube and be shared to potentially millions of people, which opened up a completely new market, since publishing companies are limited based on how far they can send their mail because of obviously mail costs. But sending a video across the world because of YouTube was so much easier. YouTube revolutionized the way we send media. It was the first official company that created a way to send media to other people across the world. We obviously had websites which could send text, but they didn't have the ability to send videos, which is why YouTube was created. We already talked about this. YouTube was created just because someone needed to send a video and they had no other way to do it. And then we move on to YouTube's partner program. YouTube started becoming a corporate company. They started partnering with creators and working with them to turn what would be some kid in his bedroom into a content machine. They would be someone who's pumping out videos, getting people's attention, and getting more people to see the ads that Google is generating revenue from. This was their entire selling point. This has all happened in around May 2007. They launched their YouTube partner program, and this turned every hobbyist into an industry. And I think we've seen this a lot with some creators. I know Mr. Beast is one of the most corporate, I guess you could say, YouTubers. You can see his videos, they've become more and more streamlined, more industrial. You see him taking a team, an editing team. There's so many people behind the scenes working on this YouTube channel, getting things up, running things. And it all happened because of this partner program, because YouTube pays its creators to make videos so that more people see these videos and more people watch the ads. This was their entire scheme. And in 2024, this scheme alone generated $55 billion for the US GDP. So obviously it worked out really well. This is something we see all the time today, but back then it was just a new concept that Google launched. Didn't expect too much. Of course, Google did not have some crazy high hopes for YouTube. They probably just wanted to use it as a case study to see how this would perform. But them being able to turn this into such a high established company is something very crazy. I think one of the biggest beefs in YouTube would be PewDiePie versus T-Series. Everybody knows about this. It's essentially PewDiePie, who's an individual creator who makes all of his own videos by himself, and T-Series, who is it's an Indian-based corporate company that releases music. So these two companies are not companies, but channels are competing, and it shows how an individual is now on par with the larger company, which YouTube is allowing this to happen. If you were alone in 2016 trying to compete with a company that has potentially millions, even billions of dollars of money to spend against you, you have no way of just winning this over. But this was actually a very close competition between PewDiePie and T-Series. So it shows how an individual has gained the power to compete against corporate. Again, revolutionizing media. We've seen it through, we saw all of those old Hollywood and NBC, all of those companies running in the background and maintaining what people would see. But now anybody can post anything they want and show this to the world. And I think everybody knows about how we've created essentially media houses. I think Mr. Beast, I'll bring him up again. We've seen how he's created products. I know everybody knows about Prime. Like, these are all products created through customers who have enough engagement and enough people watching that would be willing to buy these products. You see Beast Burgers, you see Prime Hydration, you see all of these companies coming up from people who just made YouTube videos. They just made content, but were able to gain so much traction that they created a physical product to sell. They create merch. Patreon is very big. They do direct consumer brands, just like these Prime and Beast Burgers. There's so many out there now. And this all happened because of YouTube's creator program, because YouTube partners with creators to pay them, which allowed more people to essentially just lock in on what they're creating. If you just have people creating for fun, you're not going to have as many people doing it, and you're not going to have as many people doing it with dedication. But if you pay people to create good videos that would keep people focused, which attention is your new currency, and we'll get into that as well, why attention has become so important in the modern world. But if you take people and you essentially tell them that, like, we'll pay you to create something that people would watch, people watch the entire video, watch the ad to get to the other part of the video, then this created a new drive, created a new business for many people who didn't have any sort of like power over anything. They were just corporate workers. They were just doing things like working basic jobs, working basic hours. Now they were able to create their own business, essentially. YouTube channels could be considered businesses. And I think one of the biggest revolutionary things about YouTube is their algorithm. This was probably the biggest shift in modern media. It showed how people went from just searching up random things on YouTube to being recommended things that based on things they've already seen. This made it so that your attention span is the currency on YouTube. And we've seen this time and time again with Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. All of these corporations are trying to get your attention. They're not trying to ask you for a monthly payment to use their software or pay one time to use their software. They're asking you to watch these videos so that they can generate money, and that they generate money and they give a part of it to the creators who created the videos. And now let's talk about the modern landscape of how YouTube is being used today in high quality production. We see, again, I mentioned trailers for our high quality movie studios and how they A24, how they release their trailers. Pretty much any movie that's ever been released is now like putting their trailers on YouTube, because that is where they'll get the most traction. That is just putting their trailer on YouTube is enough traction generated for a big portion of their marketing. They don't have to go out and put posters everywhere like they did before YouTube. They just have to put this video out there so that people can see what this movie is about and what they're going to be watching, essentially. We've also, I want to mention small creators who have been able to use essentially they've been able to use their own camera gear and their own minds and be some creative and create stories, put these stories out there and show to the world what they want, like kind of how movie directors do. But they don't need even a fraction of the level of, I guess, credibility that these movie directors have. They can be anyone who just wants to create something, and they can take their camera or even their phone now, because most phones are good enough to record pretty high quality. I know the iPhone 17 Pro is definitely up there in terms of camera quality. So anybody can just take any idea and bring it to life and put it on YouTube and even generate good money off of it. This leads to a lot of people wanting to use YouTube as like their main source of media. They want to talk about how people want to talk about what they find interesting, kind of like the mid-media podcast. We talk about just what we find interesting, just what we think is fun, what we think would interest other people. We record, we post, and then we hope that other people find it enjoying. So without YouTube, we wouldn't be able to do this. Think about a world without YouTube. If there was no YouTube, there'd probably be no Instagram and TikTok, because this concept obviously stemmed from YouTube. The short form content is like a twist, kind of like a spin-off on what YouTube does. So without this, many people would not be able to create the way they want to. And so many people make a living off of YouTube. So many people do not have jobs. They do YouTube full time. They work for other YouTube creators. As I said, industries. Mr. Beast has hired a team of, I think, over 100 people now, and they all are getting paid full time to work not on their own YouTube channel, but on a small part of another person's YouTube channel. This has created so many new jobs, so much more demand for editing, for knowing how to use cameras, recording videos, marketing. This has created so many different fields and so much more like professional fields, rather than just the basic 9-to-5 working in, I guess, any like hard labor, blue collar job. You're doing more creative work, I guess you could say. One other thing is, as I mentioned before, the political campaigns between presidents were being, I guess, documented and recorded by people at the press conferences. If you look now, without a camera, there would be no press conference. Like, the people in that area are just, there's pretty much no like need for a journalist anymore, because of how many people, or how many cameras and how many recording devices are in, I guess you could say, the presidential debate. It's fully online. You have to watch it through a service. You can't just go there and start watching in person. You have to watch online. So all of our like major political movements, even local political movements, are being taken to this new platform, to this new virtual area where a lot more people can see it. That's why these companies do it, because so many people can see it. The more customers you have, the more people you can reach out to, the more people you can convince that you're going to be the better president, the more you'd want to do that. That's why Facebook gained so much traction in the first place. It's because it has a larger audience than most other forms of production. Before, you could go on to the press, or you could go on, like, I guess, a TV channel. But now you can go on YouTube and put everything that you believe, or everything you stand for, on there, and people would be able to decide for themselves, and a lot more people would be able to decide for themselves. I think one more thing we should talk about is the truth or news being broadcasted on YouTube. I know there's a lot of like controversies about how truthful everything is on social media. You see a lot of like fake news or fake just writings, or anything that people create is just, you can't take it unless they're credible. Like we do have professional news channels on YouTube now. That is their main source of viewership. It's on YouTube. But you also have to be careful on like smaller businesses, or even on Instagram and TikTok. There's a lot of fake news channels. They just post completely fake things that are happening, that are not happening. And yeah, they try to benefit off of people's grief and fear and it becomes decentralized. The truth becomes decentralized in this large mass of media. There's so many things that a person could watch. Their opinions are influenced by so many different things that it leads to everyone just having a different opinion. I guess like there's so many like different splits. I think if you look at it on Instagram and TikTok, you can see a lot of people have like so many different opinions that they just stereotyping a person is so difficult, because there's so many different things, so many different layers of what a person believes in. I don't know if I'm getting my point through correctly, but there's so many, like, because of media, we've been able to experience the views of other people that we probably wouldn't have been able to do before. And this creates, I guess, a more diverse community than it would be before. I think that before media like this, we were all influenced by things that would happen near us. Like, you wouldn't see a presidential debate unless it happened near you, or you see the publishing company who published what they believe the president's influence was, rather than you having the full control over what you understood. It's more about what another company believed, and that's what they posted. We had biased news, I guess you could say, but now it's more about finding like truth that's decentralized, trying to figure out what you believe in yourself rather than believing in other things that are being posted by companies. Of course, I should mention this is being filmed in the Brandyol Media podcast studio. We run the studio ourselves. We record weekly episodes, and we post on how to become like your own podcast, or how to have your own podcast. As we're talking about YouTube, everybody had their own voice. Everybody had something to say. Everybody has something to say. So you being able to come here, we offer services. You can come here, record hourly, and get your voice out there. We'll help you get your voice further. YouTube is such a big platform now that it's a lot harder to make yourself known. You can't fall into this saturated trap of so much content being produced. You have to stand out, and we know how to do that, and we can help you do that. We can create many different accounts for you. We can create a website. We can just create your own personal brand. You have to be unique in this current world. As we're seeing back maybe in 2005 when YouTube first came out, you could release any video and you'd be like one of 5 videos on YouTube. But now there's millions, billions of videos on YouTube, and all of them are trying to compete for the same attention that you're trying to compete for. So you have to know how to handle your own beliefs and how to get yourself known to people out there. And we know how to do that. We can get you out there. We can record for you. You just have to come in. You sit down. We record for you. You just talk about any idea. Anything you have an idea. Everybody has some sort of unique idea. You just have to know what to talk about and when to talk about it. So come here. You can have something written down or on your phone or anywhere. You come here, you talk about it. Either you record on your own or you come with someone else to record with, like we do on the Mid Media podcast. And you essentially just record whatever you want. You can live stream, you can record, we can post it on our channel to help your channel grow more. And yeah, we just create things we're just a media company. We create everything. We do other services as well. Let's say you're not into media, but you do have other products that you want to sell or things that you do want to sell. Like, I guess on TikTok, I know everybody's seen TikTok Lives and TikTok Shop. We hear it all the time. We know how to get your product onto a TikTok Live. We actually host our own TikTok Lives, and we'll put your product on there, and we'll promote our live with your product on our shop or on your shop. We can do it for your account. It doesn't have to be ours. We just put your product, we get it out there, more people see your product. We're competing for the same attention that everyone else is competing for. And if you scroll on TikTok Live, you'll see so many different people who are trying to sell you something. So we know how to be unique in our selling points. We know how to make your product stand out and create a story based around your product. Create something that you want to sell. Obviously, let's say you have any sort of, I know water bottles are really popular today, so any sort of like and what is it, Stanley, if you have like a Stanley alternative, or if you have like an attachment for them and you want to sell that, we can help you sell that. We can get your product out there. We know a lot of people have Stanleys. Maybe they have had a problem, like they need a cover for their straw. So we can build a story around that. We can promote your product, and we can get sales through what media has created, through everything I just talked about, all of YouTube, all of how it came to being, how Google bought YouTube, created a creator program. Everything happened up till now to create the media we know today. And we know how to turn this media into essentially a business tool. We are a marketing company. I know everybody's seen digital marketing and heard the term at least. We have essentially taken it upon ourselves to be a company that focuses on digital marketing. Our entire goal is to take a business and brand them on media and make sure they are getting their products or their services out there, whether that's through a podcast or just a single recording like I'm doing right now. We know how to get your products out there or your services out there and make your name be known in the community. I think I'll go back to the YouTube part where I was talking about ad blocking, and I never really touched back on that. So yeah, ad blocking has become very popular on YouTube. A lot of people have installed an ad blocker from their extensions, and that essentially shows you no ads on YouTube. And this is probably one of the worst things to happen to Google in the modern day, because it absolutely destroys their entire revenue stream for YouTube. And again, this revenue stream is very questionable. We don't know how much net revenue they generate every year. We only know their gross revenue. So YouTube could be a loss for Google already, but the ad blocking that we've seen in the YouTube, and they are more likely to not see any ads during those 4 hours, and that's blocking a lot of revenue for YouTube. Them not having any ads, their highest outliers, the people they probably generate the most single revenue per user for, are essentially zero. But they're also still using the same servers that everyone else is using. They're still affected by the media usage, the data usage that these users are using. They're still watching YouTube, and in fact they're watching more YouTube than most other people, so that means they're using more data. And using more data, that means they're essentially stopping other people, potentially people who don't have an ad blocker, from using that same data. And that essentially creates a very questionable, I guess, revenue stream for YouTube. And in the future, maybe like researching this, I was looking at it and I was like, wow, this is pretty crazy. Like, if YouTube can't generate any revenue, how long will it stay alive? And I've been thinking, and I was like, maybe YouTube may not survive as long as we all think it will. I mentioned how expensive data is, how expensive storage is for these newer videos. It's very difficult to maintain such a large amount of videos, especially even for a company like Google. Even though they have so much money, they cannot just create a huge amount of warehouses that just has storage. So the future of YouTube is definitely questionable, whether we'll continue seeing a platform like this in the future. I think the only thing holding it from going away is how big it's become. I definitely know that like Google did not expect YouTube to become this big in when they bought it for $1.65 million in 2006. So now they've probably thought about how YouTube could shut down in the future, and how would that affect everything that we have today? Would there be a new company to replace Google, or would there be an immediate rush of different companies all trying to take the spot that Google has created? if Google leaves, it'll create a huge void in the way that a lot of companies, individuals, hobbyists, everybody, just people who interact with YouTube in any sort of way, it would affect a lot of people. So there's always obviously other companies that want to just jump in and take that spot. But if YouTube were to get deleted, I'm not sure what would happen to the current existing videos, or what would happen to attention spans. And I guess that can tie into something else. Why? How has modern media affected the attention span of a normal person? And this is something I'll target in another episode. It's very, very deep. This goes into multiple different companies, from Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Of course, they still have shorts as well, and even shorter YouTube videos. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to talk about here. Maybe it even goes on the podcast. But yeah, we're definitely gonna do something with this. We're gonna talk about how a modern person's attention span has been ruined by these new corporations, or I guess they're not new anymore. They've been around for so long. And one crazy fact that I found was YouTube was actually a dating site before it became a video platform. And the reason it actually became a video platform was, of course, because they needed to transfer videos, but also because nobody was using it. So they just made it so that any company anybody could release any sort of video instead of just being dating related. So yeah, it's very crazy. I actually didn't know that. So yeah, that should be all for today. Yeah. Again, we have the studio open. Anybody can book this studio. It's $149 per hour. It is a professional studio. We use the Blackmagic 4K G2 Pluses. We use the Shure SM7Bs. We have a Rodecaster Video, which is one of the best video mixers on the market right now. I know Rode is a very big company with audio mixers, but this is their first venture into videos. But yeah, that should be all for today. I'll be live every week on Wednesday. And yeah, we should have a video for Mid Media also coming out today. So bye-bye. Thank you.